Welcome to Hero's Journey Physio Fitness. Our mission is to empower, inspire, and mentor people to reclaim their health and become self-reliant in their fitness. I'm your host, Dr. Cameron Hogue. Join with me as my co-host, Annabelle Rios.
All right, Doc, we're going live in 3, 2, 1.
Same time again. We're nailing it.
We're in sync.
So, everybody, like we say pretty much every episode, just share the podcast.
Give us some love, people.
Love.
We need it.
We love the love.
All you need is love.
Don't make us start singing. You know what I was thinking about, Annabelle, though?
What's that?
Well, first of all, I'm still coughing, which is probably need to go see a doctor.
Yeah, probably.
But second, people will pay thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars for education. They don't learn anything. They get a degree, but we're giving you
and they're still paying for it.
And they're still paying for it.
Not to get political.
We are giving free information out there. Good information, too.
Yeah.
And it's free.
Reliable.
Trustworthy. Test the spirits, but it's reliable. So, that being said, follow us on social media. There's a link tree in the description. It'll have us on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and the Tube.
Especially you, Belgium. We know you're listening. It's about time you give us a follow.
Maybe he has and we just don't know.
If you are, give us a shout out, man. Just let us know it's you.
Or it doesn't have to be a man.
Yeah.
Could be a lady.
Of course.
But yeah, let us know what you think of the podcast. We've had some people comment and stuff like that to let us know what we want what they want to hear next. So please do let us know what you want to hear.
Yeah, it's in the works.
Yeah, and we're always taking those into consideration and seeing if it's within our scope of what we can, reliably talk about.
If not, we'll find somebody.
Yeah, we'll find somebody.
We know people.
We do know some people, not just our parents and family and.
We'll get my mom in here. I think when did we post this? But you may be.
I think it was April 1st.
Yeah, April Fool's Day.
Yeah.
We started the 100 push-up challenge.
100 push-up challenge.
It's been what, a week now?
8 days. We're 800 in. How you feeling, Annabelle?
Shoulders and chest are blasted, man.
Feeling still pretty tight.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think after the second day, I'm no longer
good?
Oh, yeah, I'm good now.
Yeah.
Now it's just about the discipline of doing it and doing it on days where you work out and like, ugh.
Those days are, whew.
Yeah. It's hard. But speaking of something that's hard, Annabelle just pulled 405 pounds.
I did it, guys.
On the deadlift.
We've been talking about it for a while. I failed the first time. We'll post a video soon.
Maybe we can even post the fail video after.
That's what I was thinking, a little bit before and after.
Do we have a video of the first time you deadlifted like a couple years ago?
Back in the day. I think so.
Maybe we can post the first one too. But he did it, so if you see him on the streets or in our DMs, give him a shout out because the boy worked hard. The man worked hard on that one.
I did it. It's over. He kind of goes in
perfectly.
Like the prophet Daraki said. It was God's plan.
You mean Drake?
Drake.
Okay.
Gal 405, we're talking about, what were we talking about today, Cam?
We're still in the misconception series.
Oh, yeah, misconception.
Taking fitness myths, misconceptions about really anything related to health, fitness, or rehab, and seeing if there's any validity to it. So today is deadlifting bad for your low back?
Deadlifting 405. You see what I'm working with, guys?
So, yeah, we're going to dive into that today. So, with deadlifting, man, I feel like it's probably one of the most avoided exercises.
It's terrible for you is what people say.
So, what was it, 2 weeks ago? Yeah, it was 2 weeks ago. I was working with a patient, and a lot of times family members will come back.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they'll just ask me questions. They're getting free consultation advice. But this guy, the first thing he started saying, he's like,
they're seeing Father Hogue.
The first thing he said to me is like, hey man, I hurt my low back and I don't deadlift anymore. Don't worry. And I was like, I know that was like the first thing he said to me, and I was like, interesting.
Fake. I know it's wrong.
I know
right?
it's wrong. Like,
everybody knows this.
I'm sinning. I'm sorry, but is there a way that I could like get back in? Like, but he was trying to find a way to get back into it, which is good. But he kind of said, he didn't kind of say, he said that, you know, I know it was bad for me, but I still kind of want to do it.
Kind of like running, and we talked about like, oh, I'm not running anymore. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I've even heard, unfortunately, I think it's becoming less prominent, way less prominent. But I've even heard some physical therapists say that deadlifting is bad for your back. Just don't do it. And maybe that was just so they didn't have to answer questions, or maybe this person or patient, you know, probably couldn't do the form or whatever. But I have heard that, unfortunately. And you know what? People have hurt themselves deadlifting. So we're not going to just say that that's a myth and that people don't hurt themselves. Like, it does happen.
We'll get into
some stats.
Prevent and avoid that. And some stats.
Yep, that as well. But you know what else? I've also had people hurt themselves from getting up off the toilet. I've literally had somebody, quote, throw their back out by picking up their Shih Tzu. Their 20-pound or 15-pound, however heavy a shit. I think this was a pudgy little Shih Tzu. But I'm
maybe
like,
even 30 pounds.
Maybe even 30. You never know. And
wow.
So you can get injured, you know, regardless. And is there more to meets the eye? Is what I'm trying to point out here. Is deadlifting the culprit, or is it not the culprit? Are we just putting blame?
Are we just casting the blame? Is it the scapegoat?
Yeah. Is this a scapegoat?
Yeah.
Here's some interesting statistics. One of the most common reasons for a doctor's visit is low back pain. Isn't that crazy? Like, one of the most common reasons someone will get off their butt, go see their PCP or ortho doctor is because of low back pain.
That's mind blowing. I would think it would be, I don't know, not lower back pain.
Yeah. Billions.
With a
billions.
B.
Yeah,
billions of dollars.
With a B, is spent on the management and or treatment of low back pain each year. So that could be MRIs, that could be injections, that can be surgery, that can be physical therapy, that could be maybe chiropractic. I don't know if they're with insurance or not. Well, I'm not so for sure on that one. But yeah, on the management of low back pain, billions of dollars.
I mean, I work in that office.
Everyone's got some low back pain.
Everybody has low back pain.
Yeah.
We're all trying to get standing desks to help.
That will help. But we can get into that later.
We get more into it.
So one of the craziest parts is that's definitely the thing that I see the most in the clinic. So like, out of all my caseload, I will always have somebody with some sort of low back pain.
What's your theory? What's creating this epidemic?
Well, I will give you some thoughts here in a minute.
Okay.
We do know, and this is sad, but we do know that effective interventions and, you know, management treatment are largely unsuccessful, whether that's surgery, injections, physical therapy, chiropractic. They were largely unsuccessful. It doesn't mean that they are not successful. It just means that they're largely unsuccessful. Now, we are getting better at it. I think the PT profession is continuing to grow and adapt, and you know, we're getting more and more research on the treatment of this, and I do think it is getting better. But even if you look like at myself or even our company, we have like outcome scores to kind of show like the percentage of improvement.
Yeah.
And always low back pain is the one that, I mean, we have improvement 100%, but it improves less than every other body part that we treat. It's the one that,
interesting.
Yeah, it's the lagging body part. It's the, you know, it's interesting.
It is interesting.
And that's not the point of technically this podcast, is to get into why, you know, the treatment isn't effective. But I do know that 80 to 85%, there's an 80 to 85% lifetime prevalence of low back pain. So a lot of people are going to get it and have it for a little bit throughout their lifespan.
That's a big number.
That is a huge number.
Yeah.
This isn't like, you know, I sprained my wrist, or, you know, that's probably very low, but, you know, 85%, that's super high.
I have my thoughts on it too. We can go over later.
So again, like last episode, we kind of did a little hypothesis or theories. Mine is, well, what percentage of that is from deadlifting? You know what I mean? Like, think about that. Like, I would have to guess a very low percentage of the 85% is from low back pain. Or from deadlifting, sorry.
Yeah.
Like, I would have to say I don't know. We don't have the number on it, but I would speculate that it is very, very low.
Yeah. They didn't get the low back pain because of deadlifting. It was already there.
Yeah. So I hypothesize, is if that prevalence of that low back pain would actually go down if more people started deadlifting.
Oh.
I also wonder, potentially, that billions of dollars we treat on the, you already have low back pain, now we're treating it. I wonder how that cost would go down if we were preventing low back pain through deadlifting. Just a thought. We got some research to kind of get into.
Yeah.
But one thing I feel like we need to look at is, what are some stats on these injuries? You know what I mean?
I know. I think when you think about deadlifting specifically, but just weightlifting, that's a whole.
Yeah, I like what you're saying. Like, let's just back up. Like, when people think of just weightlifting, they're like, I'm going to get hurt.
You're going to get hurt. It's automatic, man.
It's going to happen.
So why even bother?
And if I do decide to go to this place where I'm going to get hurt, I'm definitely going to avoid the one thing that's definitely going to hurt.
Everybody knows the deadlift.
It's going to hurt. So let's look at some of these statistics.
It's like, what sport or what activity are you most likely to get injured?
Right. So this is from the Journal of Strength and Conditioning. It's an older study, granted, but it's a good study.
Yeah.
And essentially what it looked at the most common sports, and it looked at the injury rates per, I want to say, 100 participation hours. So you do this sport activity for 100 hours. What's the likelihood? What's the percentage chance that you're going to get injured? Do you have any guesses on what? Viewers, if you're listening out there, what do you think are the top 2 sports to get injured in?
What comes to mind? I think it's gonna be cheating because we've already gone over this a little bit, but
I would say football.
What came to mind first when we were talking about was like football, automatic number 1.
I was gonna say football and rugby were when I initially heard that were gonna be my
football,
top 2
rugby
because of the contact.
Yeah,
but it's not.
But
soccer.
It's not.
Soccer has an injury rate of 6.2 per 100-hour participation hours.
That blew my mind.
Yeah,
that blew my mind.
Now, when they're saying injury rate, I'd have to go back and double check, but I want to say this is like injury. Like, you didn't just tweak something, you didn't have a little inflammation or a flare up. We're talking like you hurt yourself and you're out. Not a little flare up here that gets better with some, going on a little walk or some stretches and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Number 2 was rugby. So I got that one right, but it was at 1.9, which I still think that's still so low. 1.9% for 100-hour participation hours in a sport.
Now they're definitely banged up and bruised but not, like we said,
not injured. Yeah. So
then a lot of people are going to come back and say, well, that's not true. You don't know. You're always hurting when you play football, no matter what. But yeah, you're hurting. You're not injured. So
football, like American football, not soccer, is 0.1% chance per 100 participation hours, which is also super low.
I thought that one was going to be way harder.
I thought so too.
But
here's the crazy part. Weight training. And so this is talking about just your average gym goer. Well, I would say this is probably not average. I would say this is at least people that are willing to identify themselves and be in a study, that type of thing.
Say, I live.
Yeah, it is 0.0012 per 100 hours. Isn't that crazy?
That's low.
And then if you look at competitive powerlifting, meaning like you're lifting some heavy weight, or weightlifting, which is, I think this is talking about Olympic
lifting. Yeah, we'll clarify. Powerlifting essentially means the big 3: squat, bench, deadlifting.
Yep.
Olympic is power clean and what's the other one?
Snatches,
yes.
Yeah, maybe even the clean and jerk.
Clean and jerk, yeah, more of that.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with the ones they do for competition, but these are competition.
Yeah.
And it is 0.0008, so 3 zeros and then the 8. And then same thing with Olympic weightlifting, 0.006. That is super low, guys.
Yeah.
So if you are at all nervous about getting in the weight room, lifting heavy or lifting dynamic, the odds are down. But again, these are people who know the form.
Yes.
There is something to say about, making sure you know form and all that kind of stuff.
Don't be an idiot.
Don't be an idiot.
Don't go heavy right off the bat. Just like you wouldn't go hard in sports right off the bat.
Don't forget everything we've said during this podcast up to this point.
Yeah.
But what we're trying to do is build some reassurance around people to know that if this is something that you're interested, to make this a lifestyle habit, don't think about lifting weights and deadlifting as injury prevention. Like, I'm making my body stronger so that I won't get injured when I go out and play soccer or go on a hike or lift my kid.
Yeah, it's just like sports. You try to learn a technique at first before you try to do anything else that's more advanced. And same thing, you start light, maybe just a bar for a while. Focus on the technique and then build from there. Add some weight, add other variables to it. So.
I think the big part on why we shared those statistics is to try to shift your mindset.
Yes.
You don't go to the weight room to get injured. You don't deadlift to get injured. You go to get stronger and to prevent pain so that your body's more resilient when you go do a bunch of activities.
Preventative medicine.
Like picking up your Shih Tzu or getting off the toilet or going hiking, or playing soccer, whatever. You want to be stronger so that, you prevent it. So mindset shift.
Exactly.
Mindset shift.
You're not going to get hurt.
Okay, so why should we deadlift then? So if we know that weightlifting is relatively safe if you know the right form and are progressing and you're not being an idiot, like you said. I think that deadlifting serves a twofold purpose. Number one, I think the word functional gets overused a lot because people will get on,
Functional fitness.
Yeah, I think that is definitely overplayed a little bit. But I think at the same time, you got to be able to lift something off the ground. You know what I mean?
How many times throughout the day, throughout the rest of your life, are you going to pick something off the ground?
And if the answer is, I don't pick anything off the ground, you're lying. you have to pick something.
Well, you could have one of those little long stick things. You know what I'm talking about? What's our call?
I know what you're talking about. Those little extendo arms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In that case, maybe you're not.
Maybe. But I feel like
most people
aren't going to do that. You're going to be picking stuff off the ground. So why not be strong in a movement where you have to pick stuff off the ground if you think you're going to get injured by lifting stuff from the ground?
And if you have kids, they're dropping things all the time that you're going to have to pick up.
And then number two, I think it's one of 3 total body strength movements. I would even argue that this particular exercise works the most amount of muscle mass. So think about this. It works the knee extensors. It works the hip extensors. It works the erector spinae. It works the quadratus lumborum. It works your core musculature, your back musculature, your upper trapezius, your forearms. It works. It doesn't work every muscle, but it works a lot of muscles.
Dang.
Those muscles are going to not only, it's not just your low back. That's 100% getting stronger, but it is working a lot of muscles.
It does. I'm still pretty beat from pulling
from
on Monday.
From the 405.
And that was Monday, and today's
Saturday.
Yeah. So
yeah. So they also did some studies on looking at kind of the electromyography, basically looking at how much the muscles are firing during an exercise. They saw that the hamstrings. I said that hamstring. That the hamstrings are activated more in the deadlift than from doing a hamstring curl on one of those machines.
Really?
Yeah. So you'll get more muscle activation from the deadlift, meaning that you'll get bigger muscles, stronger muscles than just doing a hamstring curl.
I know we'll get some hate because there's a lot of people, even people who lift, don't like it.
Yeah.
They say, "Oh, well, you're not really hitting the hamstrings that much. There's nothing like hamstring curls." Blah 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 blah.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely going to make your hamstring stronger, which would then allow you, if you go to a hamstring curl machine, to do more weight with higher reps to basically potentially build more hypertrophy.
Yeah.
But it's just one of the best exercises.
Yeah.
We also know that it really hits the erector spinae. These are the big backstrap muscles that run up your back that will that help with some definitely helps with keeping you erect and upright, but it also helps with some lumbar extension. So we know that really hits those muscles, and we know that stronger erector spinae lead to a stronger low back. and a stronger low back makes it harder for your low back to get injured. So
boom.
So to that point, some people will come back and might say, well, it could lead to a bulging disc and, nerve pinch, all that kind of stuff. And what I would say to that is maybe if you are really rounding your low back, potentially, if you go too hard, too quick, definitely stuff like that. But if you're keeping a flat back, there is absolutely no reason why that would lead to any sort of disc injury. No reason.
And like we've said before, if you get your technique right, you're going to be fine.
Yeah. So there was a study by Watson et al. And they looked at postmenopausal women and deadlifting, which I thought was kind of cool. So while they looked at postmenopausal women, there's a lot of hormonal changes happening in the body after menopause. And typically you start to lose bone density quicker, like potentially get more into like osteopenia, osteoporosis. We all start to lose lean muscle mass after the age 30 to 35, but that definitely speeds up then. So they found that with deadlifting, it increased bone density in these women. It found that it helped their back extensor strength, like we already talked about. It decreased their thoracic kyphosis, which is, as we get older, how people start to get that kind of like hump in their back and things start to kind of, gravity starts to win and pull us forward. That actually decreased, which will actually decrease your chances of getting spontaneous stress fracture when you get older. So if you start to lose bone density and you start to get rounded forward, it can lead to these spontaneous stress fractures in your low back. I actually treated a lady who had this. She came to me for back pain. We did a couple sessions and it wasn't getting better. And I was like, I think you might have a stress fracture, because she was osteopenic and had the thoracic kyphosis and was sedentary. She went to the doctor. She had spontaneous stress fractures. And this study was also looking at overload, like progressive overload on the deadlift. This wasn't talking about they just did a 20-pound kettlebell. They were doing a barbell and they were loading it. They were getting stronger on it.
Yeah.
Showing that it's safe.
And then it helps
and
a lot.
And that it helps. Yeah, that it helps a lot. And there are probably a lot more studies. I just pulled that one because those are some of the big ones where people will say, like, will it actually, change bone density? Will it actually change muscle mass? That kind of thing. This study would point to that being, true, that it does do those things.
That's awesome.
It's hard to talk about form on a audio podcast.
It is.
So one thing that we can just lead you to is there is a book called Starting Strength.
The Godfather.
We really enjoy Mark Ripito and his videos and his book. I think every person, if you're going to start strength training, need to know how to squat and deadlift and bench press and overhead press, and they've got some good information. I
think a lot of people even use their resources.
Yeah.
They go into very, very great detail in every single aspect, like where you need to be looking, your positioning, your hand grip, etc. So check it out.
So I'm not going to necessarily get into how to set up for the deadlift. I think those videos are perfect to look at.
Yes, check them out.
They're on YouTube. I think you can find their book on Amazon. It's just called Starting Strength. But I do want to talk about some things that you should avoid.
Yes.
What a lot of people start doing is when they get set up, they start lifting with their hips first. So their knees actually go straight, and then that automatically puts more force into your low back.
Yeah.
So instead of keeping your chest up and kind of dragging the barbell, up your shins and thighs, they immediately kind of go straight. And that will put more force into your low back. I'm not going to say it's, you can definitely keep a flat back, but you're not going to get as much lower extremity, movement. It's going to go more to your hip and low back if you start by driving up with your hips first and like extending your knees versus like continuously standing and dragging it up with a big chest. Another one is rounding of the low back and rounding of the upper back. Like, again,
It's kind of hard on a podcast, but because there's a
Right.
lot of different cues, a lot of different technique points, but just
Yeah, and even some rounding isn't bad. Like no one's got there's no such thing as perfect form
I'm glad you said that.
in that
Yeah.
in that regard. But we're talking about excessive rounding, like you're just you're doing it all back. You're not using your legs, you're not using your lats. It's just going straight
Yeah.
to the spine. So you want to avoid that. You definitely want to avoid excessive extension at the top. Like once you get it, some people like almost try and do like they go far backwards.
Mm-hmm.
And like you definitely want to make sure you get all the way up, but some people overdo and go into too much lumbar extension at the top. You want to try to avoid that. But the biggest one is you want to avoid that rounding of the back, because that can put the back in a compromised position. It'll create excessive force on those what we call the intervertebral disc. Because of the rounding, it puts more pressure on the front, meaning it can push out the back. That's where you get the quote bulging disc type deal. So keep flat back, don't excessively round,
and you'll be fine.
Yeah, and you'll be fine. Okay, so if some people want to get into deadlifting, they've never done it before, I do have some exercise progressions that I would recommend. And again, maybe we should just make a video on this too.
I think so. I think it'll be good.
Yeah, look at form. Like I know there's stuff out there, but I would definitely like to get my own, like our own video out there on that. So one thing you can do is just working on the hip hinge pattern. So you're not squatting, you're kind of like folding. And an easy way to do that is using a dowel or like a broomstick or something like that you kind of hold in your hands, or you can kind of place along your back to make sure your back is just staying in flat, staying in neutral spine. Mm-hmm. And, you just kind of hip hinge forward and just work on the motor control and the mobility, maybe 3 sets of 10, building up on that. Then you can hold a kettlebell, and do the same type of technique, but now we're just kind of starting to load a little bit more. And maybe you just do that kettlebell, maybe to like your knees. You don't have to actually go to the floor. And then maybe you go from the floor with the kettlebell. And then I would say that you're probably ready for the barbell.
Yeah. Especially since most people listening probably have never deadlifted, or may have in the past and probably didn't have the best technique.
Yes. And there's also things called rack pulls, where you don't have to pull the barbell from the floor. You can kind of elevate the height of it from the floor by putting it on like the J hooks or one of the safety
spotters.
Yeah, safety spotter parts, and you can do more of a rack pull from there. And I would say like the farthest progression is a single leg Romanian deadlift. It just requires strength, balance, core stability, neuromuscular coordination, mobility, and then you're holding the weight with one hand. So it's a little bit more loaded of an exercise. You definitely won't get like crazy strong because you can't do too much weight, but it's definitely really good to do if you're wanting to go into more unilateral movements and hitting a little bit more balance and coordination to an exercise. So that would say our progression. So hip hinge with a stick or a broomstick, using a kettlebell from an elevated height, kettlebell from the floor, barbell, then potentially like a rack pull if that barbell is still too low. And then you could progress to like single leg type hinging patterns with weights, dumbbells, barbells, or dumbbells or kettlebells. So what does all this mean? There was a study by, I'm going to butcher this name, Holmberg. And what they looked at was people with low back pain. And these people with low back pain had a positive response in terms of their pain. So like on the pain scale, like their pain went down and their function improved. Like they weren't able to do this, but now they're able to do that with deadlifting, barbell deadlifting for 10 weeks. So that's kind of cool. The only problem is there was only like 3 subjects, participants. So it's a little lower level for sure because you didn't have too many subjects in it. But I think that's a good start. I think that
definitely.
There's other studies that looked at it too for about 8 weeks. Again, I think my hypothesis is I think the more research that comes out and the more people that do proper deadlifting with good technique, I think this is going to be one of the most beneficial ways to prevent low back pain and potential treatment for low back pain.
Yeah. No, I agree, and it just a lot of the blame is put on it, but it's really gonna help you more than anything else.
Yeah. So I don't want to overlook the fact that some people have hurt themselves, most likely because of either incorrect form, too much reps, too much weight without the body being ready. The body hadn't adapted yet. But for others, I think this is going to be one of the best exercises you can do. I know for myself, I don't like to use anecdotal evidence here, but I was definitely having low back pain and even some hip pain. As soon as I started deadlifting, barbell deadlifting from the floor, progressive overload, my back pain went away. I haven't had back pain.
Me too. I was having a lot of back pain as well, and then started deadlifting.
And I make all low back patients do some sort of hinge pattern with weight. If I can get them deadlifting from the floor, I do. I've worked with 80-year-olds. I've made them deadlift or even rack pull, one of the two, if they can't get down to pick it from the floor. And I think it's one of the most effective interventions and potentially preventative treatments for low back pain. But yeah, that's all that I got for, is deadlifting bad for your back? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say that's a myth.
No, it's a myth. Start slow.
Build up. Yeah. You got any closing thoughts there, Annabelle?
No, just like we always try to tell you guys, remember you are human. We should not seek perfection, but daily improvement.
See you guys.